Welcome to the Heal Your Hunger Show, where we get to the heart of why you overeat and how to stop. If you struggle with food and weight like I did, welcome home. Welcome everybody to the Heal Your Hunger Show. So happy to have you here. It is a great day to be alive. Seriously, springtime is it's just coming on us, and it's beautiful and it's wonderful. There's in LA, we've got lots of flowers, so I smell the fragrance of the different flowers when I go for my walk, pray, and it's just incredible. I feel so blessed to be alive. Not to mention, I'm on my way to Costa Rica, so that puts an extra spring in my step. Obviously, I'm literally headed to the airport and just like after I record this. So I am recording this in the Secret Sauce group live. If you have not joined the group yet, what are you waiting for? This is where I record my podcast. You can comment and just tell me how this lands for you. Love to hear about it. And then this is also where I give my very up-to-date news flashes and invitations to really cool things and guest speakers and all that. So join us, and also just inspirational messages. Emotional eaters, if you struggle with food and weight and you are an emotional eater, you think you might be an emotional eater, we got to have our tribe. We got to be with people who get us. And I'm going to talk about that today along with my topic. So join us in the Secret Sauce group. You just go to Facebook and you type in Secret Sauce to End Emotional Eating and request to join. And that's where you get to be with people who understand you, because who but emotional eaters would understand obsessing about food, feeling compelled to eat, criticizing our bodies and just feeling despair around a cookie or feeling powerless over a cookie. So there's a way out of that. That's what I teach people in my programs. But first we got to just be with our people, so we know we're not the only ones in the world who do these crazy things around food. So today I want to talk about the 5 steps to feeling more authentic in everything you do. Because guess what? As emotional eaters, we don't feel authentic. And this is what came up for me actually with a potential client I was talking to. And she was mentioning how she doesn't feel authentic. And I thought back to that feeling I had. That was one of the main things that bugged me, or not just bugged me, plagued me about being an emotional eater, is that, and I didn't think in terms of being an emotional eater, I just knew I didn't feel authentic. And I didn't use that word. That word is very much, in our culture now. It's in our jargon. You hear about it a lot, be more authentic. And it's a great thing, but it's a little overused, that word. So what I mean is really feeling like yourself and feeling like you are who you are, and that is a very hard thing to accomplish. One wouldn't think we'd have to accomplish being who we are, but the fact is, as emotional eaters, we aren't who we are, and that's part of the whole problem. We are not living our authentic selves, and that creates a disconnect, and that drives us to eat. I promise you, food is not your problem. If you struggle with food and weight like I did, I was 50 pounds overweight and I struggled, but food was not my problem. Food was the symptom. Food is what I used when I didn't feel authentic, when I felt like I was not the person God meant for me to be, when I felt like who I was not good enough. Then I set out to be somebody else. And I was always trying to put it on. I was always trying to be funny. I was always trying to be smart. I was always trying to be pretty. And guess why? Because I didn't feel those things in my heart. In my heart of hearts, I thought I was stupid. I thought I was bad. And I thought I was ugly. So I was always trying to be smart, have smart conversations. I'd read the newspaper and I'd try to, talk smart about politics or about, the issues of the day. When I really could have cared less. That's really not who I am. I'm not intellectual, and I don't care about those things. I care about things of the heart. Hence, heal your hunger, talking about emotions and emotional eating and what's really driving us and what's in our hearts. That's the kind of stuff I love talking about, that depth of soul. Like that's the kind of conversing I want to do. But I was trying to be smart because I thought I was stupid. I mean, it was a deep down belief. I could have said, oh, sure, I'm smart. I went to a really notorious prep school and college and yet I didn't feel smart. Intellect was a thing in my family. My sister went to Harvard. I did not go to Harvard. My dad, he was super smart and intellectual. And so I had this inferiority complex and I didn't feel smart enough. Have you ever felt that way? Do you ever feel like you're inadequate in some way? Maybe not in intellect, but maybe in ability to, do your job, or ability to parent your kids. If you don't feel adequate and you're feeling like, gee, I'm lacking this way, you're going to put it on, right? So I put on that I was smart. I thought I was ugly. And frankly, I grew up not looking so hot. I looked kind of like a boy. So I had this bowl haircut. I looked like a boy. I'm like, thanks, mom. Great. That's really good for one's self-esteem. I looked like a bowl, like I had a bowl haircut, and looked like a boy. I was literally in a waiting room one time at a doctor's office, and there was this other boy in the room was saying to his mom, I want to play with that little boy. And I'm like, I'm the only other kid here. So I looked like a little boy. I thought I was ugly. I was fat growing up. So I had that going on. Like I felt so bad about how I looked, about my weight. And so I was always trying to look pretty, and I was like, beauty was a really big thing for me. And frankly, it still is. I like to wear nice clothes. I like to have the, makeup that goes with my clothes, or, the glasses that go with my outfit, hence my Kulo glasses. These are dollar glasses, by the way, from the dollar store, but I think they look good with my outfit. If you're watching, if you're listening, well, they're black and they have little diamonds in them. They're cool for $1. Really cool. So anyway, I digress. But I was always trying to be pretty because I felt so ugly on the inside. And then bad, I thought I was so bad. And I really think this came from the fact that I had sexual abuse in my past as a child. And man, that just does a number on you. I was 5 years old and I started to be sexual. It's a very inappropriate age for a child to be, discovering her sexual self. And it was inappropriate. And it was, the thing is, it felt good. It's a crazy thing about sexual abuse is, it's bad, but it feels good. So it gives you so many messed up messages. And one of the messages I got is that I'm bad, because I knew it was wrong. I knew it was a secret, and I felt so bad. And I enjoyed the feelings. So I thought I was so bad, so depraved. And I struggled with that all throughout my childhood. And honestly, it's taken me years to let go of that feeling that I'm bad. But what did I do is I tried to be good. Okay. So this is when I didn't know I could heal from this stuff, these underlying beliefs, when I didn't know there was a way to heal. And this is exactly what my clients are doing, is they're healing the underlying beliefs. But when I didn't know there was such a way to do that, I just tried to be good. So I'm like doing volunteer work. I mean, literally at 20 years old, I was working in a battered women's shelter. I'd never been battered. But I was doing all these do-gooder things. I was always giving, people pleasing, doing for others, turning myself inside out, because I thought I was bad and I was trying to be good. So when we have these deep lying beliefs about ourselves, and then we're trying to compensate for them, overcompensate for them by being a certain way in the world, which isn't authentically who we are, guess what? It creates a disconnect. It creates a feeling of guilt. It creates imposter syndrome. And it creates dissonance that we then try to placate with food, okay? When we're not aligned with who we really are, we feel out of alignment and we eat, okay? This is what drives emotional eating. I know you like food. I know it. I like food too. I loved ooey gooey chewy foods, but that was not the beginning and the end of it. I was compelled to eat and overeat and destroy my body with ooey gooey chewy foods because I was out of alignment, because there was a tornado going on inside of me, in my heart, in my gut, okay? And I was not authentic, and I felt it, and I didn't know what to do about it. And I ate to cover up that fact about myself, I ate to try to keep the lie going about who I was. Okay. Now I was not truly bad, but I thought I was bad. So I acted good. So I was putting it on, and I was a phony. Okay. I was a phony. I was being phony in my life. And that made me feel guilty. It made me feel like an imposter. Another thing that's very typical for emotional eaters is that we feel bad for not feeling certain things, and we feel bad for feeling certain things. So let me give you an example. One time when I was in high school, there's a kid that died, okay? And it was very sad. And our whole school had a memorial service for this kid. And for some reason, because I was disconnected from my emotions, I didn't feel anything. I was out of touch and I didn't feel anything, but I pretended. So I tried to like cry or try to act sad or put on a sad face because I wasn't feeling it and I was embarrassed. I felt bad for not feeling it. And so then I put it on and tried to pretend to feel it. Have you ever done that? Have you ever really not cared about something, an issue, but acted like you cared because you're afraid about what people would think or if they would judge you? And similarly, I had feelings I thought I shouldn't have. So I didn't have feelings I thought I should have. So I pretended to have them. And then I had feelings I thought I shouldn't have, like sexual feelings, towards people I wasn't supposed to feel feelings towards, or perhaps I felt angry at a friend who's supposed to be my best friend and I'm hating on her. Have you ever had resentment or anger towards somebody that, is like supposed to be your bestie and you're feeling bad about it? Like, what's wrong? I did that all the time because anger was kind of a default emotion for me. And I feel it all the time. Anytime I was uncomfortable, I went straight to anger. So I was angry at a lot of people that I shouldn't have been angry at. So, so I thought, so when I had feelings I thought I shouldn't have, I would suppress them with food. And I'd also pretend, here we're back to the pretending, I'd pretend that I didn't feel that way. And so here I am pretending all over the place, pretending to have feelings I didn't have, pretending to not have feelings I did have. And once again, I'm out of alignment. I'm feeling bad about it. I'm trying to hide from the truth that I'm not who I say I am. And I'm stuffing it all down with food. Do you relate to this? Please, if you're on Facebook, put it in the chat. Let's hear about it. Let's compare notes. Do you know, I think a lot of you may have seen the show Bewitched or remember the show. I'm old enough. I loved that show growing up. So you remember Tabitha, beautiful witch Tabitha? But you remember her mother, Eudora, or something like that. She'd be up in the ceiling, like in the corner of the room. She'd go boom, she'd pop in the corner of the room, and she'd be looking down at Tabitha and so, shaking her finger or making like little snide comments or, pointing things out. She was a real pain in the ass. But that image was how I felt. I felt like I was up in the corner of the room watching myself. That's how out of connection I was with who I really am. I'd be watching myself speak. I was so disconnected. Do you feel that way? Do you connect? Do you feel like, gee, I'm not fully integrated. I'm not authentic. Well, if you do, okay, I want to tell you it's very typical for emotional eaters and there's a way to get out of it. Okay, so I'm going to talk about that today. The 5 ways, I'm going to blow right through these, but the 5 ways to feel more authentic in everything you do. So, and emotional eaters feel inauthentic also because we're hiding, like we're trying to cover up our bodies. We're trying to like cover up how much we eat. We're lying to ourselves about how much we eat. We're lying to others about how much we eat. We act like we're healthy, but then we go on these crazy unhealthy food binges. Right? When we know better, when we've been reading the books about, keto and paleo and vegan and whatever, Whole30, whatever you're doing, it's like you're getting healthier. You want to find a solution to your eating problem. So you're reading all the books, you're taking all the courses, you're watching the summits, and yet, you're going on these secretive binges. You've got a secret life. Well, when you live that way, you feel like an imposter, you feel like a phony, and again, out of alignment, more eating. So the number one, or number one, these are all equally important. But the first thing you got to do, if you feel out of alignment, if you don't feel authentic in your life, is stop having secrets. Okay, stop lying to yourself. Stop lying to others. And come clean. If you have a spouse who has no idea you have disordered eating, what's that about? Come on. You've been married. I talk to women who've been married for decades and their guy doesn't know that they have an eating disorder or that they're a binge eater or that they think about food 24/7. It's like they're keeping it to themselves. Tell somebody, for God's sakes, stop living a lie. Stop living in secret. Just telling your spouse that you struggle with food and weight. Now you may have a spouse who knows all about it. So don't tell him again if he does. It's like, different strokes for different folks. Some people hide it. Some people, it's like part of the family discussion. Is there weight issues? So if you are keeping a secret, let somebody know, let the cat out of the bag, come to the secret sauce group and share about it. Let us support you and hug you. Okay. Give you a virtual hug, because I know how hard it is to live in secret, to lie to ourselves, and to just be putting it on out there and having these secrets. It's so lonely. You don't have to do that. In the secret sauce group on Facebook, we're talking about this stuff. We're amongst our people. The people in my actual programs, they're going even deeper with supporting each other, and in the Heal Your Hunger community, they're talking about crazy stuff they've done around food. They're totally, opening the kimono, if you will, and they're letting it all hang out. And so it's so comforting to realize we're not the only ones who've done these crazy, crazy things with food. Guys, I used to eat out of the garbage, okay? So I know about doing crazy things with food. So you gotta stop having secrets. Number 2, start following your heart. Okay, this is one of the biggest problems for me, is that I second guessed myself all the time. And that's actually one of the traits of the anatomy of the emotional eater, is second guessing ourselves, doubting what's in our heart. And it's so destructive when we do that, because our heart is where God lies. That's where Holy Spirit is. That's where divine spirit is speaking to us. That still small voice. It doesn't matter what you call it. Everybody's got a different way of relating spiritually to their higher power, but connect with that divine spirit and then follow what that spirit says. That's following your heart. So number 2, way to feel more authentic is to follow your heart. Number 3 is to start connecting with spirit. Okay. And that's where you'll get that guidance. So you follow your heart. So maybe number 3 should have been connect with spirit. Number 2 is connect with spirit. Number 3, follow your heart. Whatever. They're pretty close. So you could put one wherever you want, and the other in the other position. But bottom line is, one of the reasons why we eat is that we're afraid of what that voice is. We're afraid to hear that still small voice inside. So when I say connect with spirit, I'm also going to say you got to stop emotional eating. Okay. You've got to stop emotional eating in order to connect with spirit. Because when you're overeating, you're covering up that voice. You're snuffing out that voice. And so, overcoming emotional eating is a spiritual thing. That's why people in my programs are learning to meditate and deepening their spiritual life, because, first of all, in order to stop emotional eating, you're going to need to connect with spirit. But in order to connect with spirit, you're also going to have to stop emotional eating, because they're so connected. If you consider yourself a deeply spiritual person, but you're binging on a routine basis, guess what? You're not as spiritual as you think. And I don't mean to be harsh, but you're killing that voice that is trying to guide you. You're killing that God voice inside of you with food. You're basically making food your God, and you are not listening to that voice. You're listening to fear. Fear is what drives our eating. So you're listening to fear, not following that still small voice. Following that voice that says, feed me, feed me, I got to have more food. And that's not what you intend. That's not what God intends for you. And that's obviously, if you're trying to be a spiritual person, that's getting in the way of your hearing God and following, what God tells you. So stop emotional eating, and connect with spirit. And that's what happens. If you start cleaning up your food, you're going to get more aware of stuff. But that's why people get afraid. That's why they go back to eating, is they can't handle what becomes apparent to them, the truth about their lives. That's why you can't overcome emotional eating without support, frankly, because all the stuff you're covering up right now with food is going to start coming to the surface when you stop overeating. And if you don't have a system for dealing with all that stuff that comes up, you're going to freak out and go back to the food. That's why 98% of all diets fail. People are like, oh, I'm going to go on a diet. I'm going to get thinner. I'm going to look good. I'm going to feel good. I'm going to have more sex, and yet it doesn't work. You start losing weight, and then you're like, OMG, I've got all these feelings and I feel all messed up and I'm feeling really out of control. Let me tamp this down with food again so I feel in control. Isn't that crazy? That's what happens. That's why diets don't work, because we have, you know, you can have a system for eating, but if you don't have a system for living without excess food, you're gonna go right back to the food. So the fourth way to feel more authentic is get with people who get you, okay? Get with community who gets you. I've already talked about that. You know, this is a lonely walk if you're doing it on your own, and virtually impossible. If you've got any addiction, you've got to be amongst people who get it and who are that way also, okay? You've got to address it in community, in like linking arms with people who understand you and care, okay? So get community. And then 5 is really, this is what's happened for me, and this is on account of my recovery and following a system for overcoming emotional eating. You know, what I teach my clients has nothing to do with food. What I'm teaching them is to become more authentic, you know, to live in alignment with who they really are, to know the truth of who they are, to search that out, and then get support to follow it. That's what's going on in my program, okay? It's not about food. It's not about weight. Come on. You've had enough of that. You've been doing that for decades. It's about becoming authentically ourselves. But part of that, and like part of getting there and part of living there, is to stop caring about what other people think. Okay, so you've got to stop caring about what other people think. And, you know, I turned 50 a few years ago, and I was so afraid to turn 50. I was like, yuck, I don't want to be 50. I don't look 50. I ain't claiming it. I'm not buying it. But I couldn't do anything about it. It was happening regardless of what I thought about it. But I didn't know how awesome it would be. I didn't know that I would come into my own. And it's not because I turned 50, it's because I've been recovering, but it's taken some time. And I just feel like 50 is a magical number, because you start like realizing, hey, this is not a dress rehearsal. I need to start living and living authentically. And so more than ever, I don't care what people think anymore. I say what I need to say. You know, I care how they feel. You know, I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings, but I'm pretty direct, you know, with what I have to say. My clients know that. I kind of tell it like it is. I say it with love, but I'm going to say it, you know, and just in my life, I don't beat around the bush. You know, I cut to the chase. I say my feelings, and I'm not in trepidation anymore about who's going to receive it in what way, or what they're going to think, or how they're going to act. I just laid out there. I don't have time. You know, I think that's where the 50 part comes in. It's like, yo, I don't have time. I got to start living, and I gotta make hay while the sun shines. And so I just say how I feel. I just put it out there. I say what I mean what I say, but I don't say it mean. But I just cut to the chase, and I'm direct, and I follow my heart, and it is beautiful and wonderful. And I stopped caring what people think. You know, I don't waste time thinking, how was that received? What do they think? What are they going to do? It's just, I let it go, you know, and that's the result of the other steps I've just talked about, which are not having secrets, following my heart, connecting with spirit, getting with community, people who get me, getting a system. Okay, there's kind of a 5.5 steps in there. So get a system for overcoming emotional eating, so you can stop emotional eating, so you can connect with spirit, and get community with people who get you, and then stop caring what people think. Okay, that's my 5.5. There might be 6 in there, but that's it. You get a bonus. All right, that's what it takes to feel authentic. And that's where I'm living now, and it's awesome. And you can have it too. And I want that for you, but you got to follow these steps. You know, you got to follow this. And life is not a dress rehearsal. So it's time. Stop living, you know, behind bushes. Like, stop hiding out in food. Stop hiding out in secrecy and not saying how you feel. Stop hiding out, you know, by not following your dreams. Stop hiding out by continuing to hate your body and continuing to struggle with food. Girls, it's time. It's time to live authentically. And these are the steps I believe it takes. And I'm here for you. I want to support you, because it is awesome. Feeling and being who you really are. You know, my whole life, this past entire year, has been about stepping more into who I am. So it's an ongoing thing. There's no finish line. It's not like I arrived. No, I don't feel like I've arrived. I feel like I'm on this path of authenticity and of becoming aligned with who I really am. And it shows up in my food. You know, the cleaner I get with who I am and the more authentic I am, the easier it is around food. And it's just a natural process. So that's what I want for you. I'm here to stand for you and to stand for you being you, because that's what God means for you. And that's how you're going to have the most peaceful relationship with food. So I hope this has been helpful. I love you so much. And yeah, I'll see you on the next show. Please post in the Facebook group and let me know your thoughts and the things that have helped you be more authentically you. Okay. Thank you so much. All the best.
If you enjoyed this podcast and want to get free support, insider health info, exclusive invites to events, and more, visit healyourhunger.com.